Ambassador Zethkar stood before the United Earth Council, his crystalline form shimmering with barely contained arrogance. The alien's six eyes swept across the assembled human leaders with obvious disdain, as if he were addressing unruly children rather than representatives of an entire species. "Your primitive civilization has been found lacking," Zethkar announced, his translator converting his chittering speech into cold mechanical English. "The Galactic Dominion has observed your species for exactly 100 of your Earth years. We have watched you wage wars, pollute your world, and spread like a virus across your star system. The verdict is unanimous among the 17 member species of the Dominion." President Chen Wei leaned forward in her chair, her weathered face betraying nothing of the fury building inside her. Around the oval table, the other world leaders maintained their diplomatic masks, but she could sense their tension. This wasn't the first contact scenario humanity had dreamed of for centuries. "You will surrender all military assets to Dominion oversight," the alien continued, consulting a holographic display that materialized from his palm. "Your spacefaring capabilities will be restricted to your home system. All research into faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and artificial intelligence will cease immediately. You have 7 of your Earth days to comply." The silence in the chamber was deafening. Chancellor Hoffman of the European Federation cleared his throat carefully. "Ambassador, surely there's room for negotiation here. Humanity has much to offer the galactic community. Our creativity, our adaptability, our—" Zethkar's laugh was like breaking glass. "Offer? You misunderstand your position, human. You have nothing we need and everything we find offensive. Your species is chaos incarnate. You fight among yourselves even as your planet dies. You create art about war and sing songs about destruction. The galaxy has no place for such enthusiasm for violence." President Chen finally spoke, her voice steady despite the historical weight of the moment. "And if we refuse?" The ambassador's form shifted slightly, what might have been the equivalent of a smile on his alien features. "Then we will demonstrate why the Dominion has maintained peace across 10,000 star systems for the past millennium. Your sun will be contained within a quantum field, slowly draining its energy until your world freezes. It will take approximately 50 of your years. Long enough for you to watch your children grow old in an increasingly cold universe, short enough to serve as an example to any other aggressive species we might encounter." The Brazilian representative, Minister Santos, couldn't contain himself. "You're talking about genocide." "The murder of 8 billion innocent people." "Correction," Zethkar replied with chilling calm. "We're talking about pest control. The Dominion has eliminated 43 species in the past 1,000 years. All showed the same unfortunate traits your kind displays: aggression, territorial expansion, technological ambition beyond your wisdom to control it." He gestured to the holographic display, which shifted to show Earth from orbit. "Your people have been observed conducting what you call war games with increasing frequency. You build weapons capable of destroying your own planet multiple times over. You send unmanned probes to every corner of your system, clearly preparing for expansion. These are not the behaviors of a peaceful species." Defense Secretary Maria Rodriguez stood abruptly. "Those exercises are defensive in nature, and exploration is a natural drive for any intelligent species." "Defensive?" Zethkar's form rippled with what could only be amusement. "Your defensive exercises involve the coordination of nuclear arsenals, space-based kinetic weapons, and what your military calls rapid deployment of overwhelming force. We have recordings of your generals discussing theoretical battles against unknown hostile forces. You were preparing for war before you even knew we existed." The accusation hung in the air like a sword. Chen realized with growing horror that the alien was right. Humanity had been preparing for interstellar conflict for decades, spawning countless military doctrines, weapon systems, and battle strategies for enemies they'd only imagined. "The Dominion maintains order through strength and wisdom," the ambassador continued. "We have technologies your species cannot comprehend. Our smallest patrol vessel carries enough firepower to render your planet uninhabitable. Our defensive networks span entire sectors of space. We offer you the chance to exist under our guidance, to learn civilization from your betters." President Chen looked around the table at her fellow leaders. In their eyes, she saw the same thing she felt in her heart. Fear, yes, but also something else. Something that had driven humanity to climb out of caves, to cross oceans, to reach for the stars. Defiance. 7 days, she said quietly. You're giving us 7 days to abandon everything that makes us human. 7 days to embrace survival over pride, Zethkar corrected. Choose wisely. The Dominion's mercy has limits, and our patience with primitive species is not infinite. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing a vast armada of alien vessels positioned just beyond Pluto's orbit. Thousands of ships, each one dwarfing humanity's largest space stations, arranged in perfect formation like a steel constellation waiting to pass judgment. Think carefully about your response, the ambassador said as his form began to shimmer, preparing to teleport away. The galaxy is watching, and the galaxy remembers how rebellious species choose to end their existence. After the alien vanished, the chamber remained silent for a long moment. Finally, President Chen spoke, her voice barely above a whisper but carrying the weight of 8 billion souls. Get me Admiral Thompson on a secure channel, and wake up everyone in the Defense Department. We have work to do. Outside the council chambers, the first snow of winter was beginning to fall over Geneva, but inside, the leaders of humanity were already planning for a much colder season ahead. They had 7 days to decide whether their species would kneel or stand, whether they would accept chains or choose to fight for their freedom, no matter the cost. The choice, when it came, would surprise no one who truly understood what it meant to be human. Admiral Sarah Thompson stood in the war room deep beneath NORAD, surrounded by holographic displays showing Earth's orbital defenses. The underground facility hummed with activity as officers from every nation worked side by side, their uniforms forgotten in favor of a shared purpose. Above their heads, the weight of Cheyenne Mountain pressed down, but it felt insignificant compared to the pressure of the deadline ticking away on every screen. Give me the numbers again, Thompson said to her aide, Commander Jackson, though she already knew them by heart. Current Earth Defense Fleet consists of 47 operational vessels, sir. 12 heavy cruisers, 18 destroyers, 17 escort frigates. Total crew complement of 8,400 personnel. Orbital platforms number 36, with an additional 12 under construction. The numbers were pathetic compared to what they'd seen outside Pluto. Thompson had served in the Navy for 32 years, fought pirates in the asteroid belt, commanded the first human mission to Proxima Centauri, and never once felt as outgunned as she did now. Dr. Elizabeth Chen, the president's daughter and head of the Emergency Scientific Council, approached with a tablet in her hands and exhaustion in her eyes. She'd been working for 72 hours straight, surviving on coffee and determination. Admiral, we've finished analyzing the sensor readings from the alien fleet, she said, her voice hoarse. The energy signatures alone indicate weapons capability equivalent to our entire global nuclear arsenal per vessel, and that's just their patrol ships. How many ships total? Thompson asked, though she dreaded the answer. Minimum estimate? 12,000 vessels. Could be as many as 20,000. They're using some kind of cloaking technology that makes accurate counts impossible. The ID room fell silent except for the constant hum of computers and the distant sound of ventilation systems. Thompson stared at the tactical display showing Earth's meager defenses arrayed like toys against a tsunami. What about the prototype weapons? She asked. The ones the public doesn't know about? Dr. Chen consulted her tablet. The particle beam. Satellites are operational but untested against alien technology. The kinetic bombardment platforms have enough tungsten rods to glass a continent, but range is limited. The experimental antimatter warheads. She paused. We have 3 functional units. Total yield is classified, but let's just say they could crack a moon. And our allies? Every spacefaring nation is contributing what they can. The Chinese are bringing their stealth fighters, the Russians their heavy assault platforms, the Europeans their shield generators. Even the Martian colonies are sending their mining ships retrofitted with military hardware. But Admiral, Dr. Chen's voice cracked slightly. It's not going to be enough, not even close. Thompson nodded grimly. She'd known this from the moment the alien ultimatum was delivered. Humanity's space forces had been built for conflicts with other humans, for controlling shipping lanes and protecting colonies. They were never designed to face an enemy with technology centuries ahead of their own. There is one option, came a voice from the doorway. Everyone turned to see General Harrison Pike, head of the Strategic Defense Initiative, walking into the room with a file marked with more classification stamps than Thompson had ever seen. "General Pike," Thompson acknowledged. "I was wondering when you'd show up." Pike was old-school military, the kind of officer who still believed in victory through superior firepower and tactical surprise. He'd been arguing for decades that humanity needed to militarize space more aggressively, and now his warning seemed prophetic. "Project Prometheus," Pike announced, setting the file on the central table. 7 years ago, we began developing contingency plans for exactly this scenario. Overwhelming alien invasion force, impossible odds, extinction-level threat to the species. Dr. Chen frowned. "I've never heard of any Project Prometheus." "That's because it was classified above your clearance level," Pike replied. "The project operates under the assumption that any alien contact would likely be hostile, based on historical precedent of what happens when advanced civilizations meet primitive ones." He opened the file, revealing blueprints and manufacturing specifications that made Thompson's eyes widen. "We've been building ships in secret for the past 5 years. Not just a few prototype vessels, but an entire fleet. Hidden construction? Facilities in the asteroid belt, on the dark side of the moon, in deep space manufacturing platforms disguised as research stations." "How many ships?" Thompson asked, her heart beginning to race. Pike's weathered face cracked into a grim smile. 500,000 vessels and counting." The room erupted into chaos as every officer began talking at once. Dr. Chen stared at the specifications, her scientific mind struggling to process what she was seeing. "These designs," she whispered. "The power systems, the weapons arrays, the armor specifications. This technology is decades ahead of anything in the public record." "We've been preparing for war since we first looked at the stars," Pike explained. "Every breakthrough in physics, every advance in material science, every innovation in artificial intelligence has been funneled into this project. We told the public we were building exploration vessels and research platforms. We were actually constructing the largest military fleet in human history." Thompson studied the tactical displays now showing Pike's hidden armada. Ships ranging from single-person fighters to massive dreadnoughts larger than city blocks, all built in absolute secrecy by the greatest minds humanity had ever produced. "The crews?" she asked. 2 million volunteers from every branch of every military on Earth and Mars," Pike replied. "They've been training in classified facilities, thinking they were preparing for hypothetical scenarios. Every simulation, every exercise, every training mission has been designed around one objective: defeating a technologically superior alien invasion force." Dr. Chen was still staring at the blueprints. "These weapon systems, some of this technology shouldn't even be possible with our current understanding of physics." "That's where you're wrong," Pike said. "Our understanding has advanced considerably beyond what the public knows. We've had breakthrough after breakthrough, all of it immediately classified and incorporated into military applications. Quantum entanglement communication systems, zero-point energy extractors, temporal displacement weapons that can age enemy hull metal into dust in seconds. The magnitude of the deception was staggering. For years, humanity had been secretly preparing for this moment, building weapons and training soldiers for a war they hoped would never come. Every peace treaty, every disarmament agreement, every call for demilitarization had been a facade covering the greatest military buildup in history. "The aliens think they're dealing with a primitive species playing with chemical rockets and nuclear weapons," Pike continued. "They have no idea that we've been reverse engineering every piece of crashed alien technology we've found over the past century, building on every theoretical breakthrough our scientists have made, preparing for the day when the galaxy came knocking on our door with demands." Thompson felt a surge of something she hadn't experienced since the ultimatum arrived. Hope. "When can the fleet be ready for deployment?" she asked. Pike checked his watch. "They're already moving into position. We've got 4 days left on the deadline. The aliens expect us to use that time to debate and surrender. Instead, we're going to use it to surround them with the biggest military surprise in galactic history." Outside, snow continued to fall over a world that didn't know it was already at war. But deep beneath the mountain, humanity's true leaders were preparing to answer the galaxy's ultimatum with a demonstration of what it really meant to be human. They had been underestimated, and that was going to be the last mistake their enemies ever made. Captain Maria Santos gripped the command chair of the UES Defiant as her ship slipped silently through the asteroid belt, running on minimal power to avoid detection. Around her, the bridge crew worked with practiced efficiency, their faces illuminated by the soft glow of tactical displays showing hundreds of other human vessels moving into position. "Stealth systems holding steady," reported Lieutenant Park from the sensor station. "The alien fleet hasn't detected our approach. They're maintaining standard patrol formation around Pluto, exactly as predicted." Santos nodded, her mind racing through the battle plans they'd rehearsed endlessly over the past 3 years. Every scenario, every contingency, every possible tactical situation had been war-gamed countless times. But now, facing the reality of combat against an enemy with unknown capabilities, all that training felt both essential and inadequate. "Communications. Connect me to Fleet Command," she ordered. The view screen flickered to life, showing Admiral Thompson's weathered face from the command bridge of the UES Prometheus, humanity's first true dreadnought. Behind her, Santos could see the massive ship's bridge bustling with activity as officers coordinated the largest military operation in human history. "Captain Santos." "Report your status," Thompson said. "Wolfpack Alpha is in position, Admiral. 47 stealth destroyers holding formation 3 million kilometers from the enemy perimeter. We have clear firing solutions on their forward picket ships." "Excellent. What's your assessment of their defenses?" Santos consulted her tactical display. "They're overconfident, sir. No active scanning, no patrol rotations, no defensive formations. They're sitting there like they own the system, which I suppose they think they do." On the sensor screen, the alien fleet was an impressive sight, massive vessels that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built, their hulls gleaming with exotic materials that seemed to bend light around them. Energy readings suggested power systems beyond human comprehension, weapon ports that could probably vaporize a city with a single shot. But Santos had learned something important during her years of training. Size and technology weren't everything in combat. Speed, surprise, and sheer bloody-minded determination could overcome almost any advantage. "Wolfpack Beta. Report." Thompson's voice continued over the comm. Captain Chen's voice crackled through the speakers from somewhere deeper in the asteroid belt. 50 stealth frigates positioned for flanking attack on their port formation. The enemy is maintaining minimal shields, probably running on standby power. They really don't think we're a threat. "Wolfpack Gamma status." This time it was Captain Morrison's gruff Scottish accent. "Heavy assault squadron standing by. 12 dreadnoughts holding position in Jupiter's shadow, ready to provide fire support once the engagement begins. Our new quantum torpedoes are armed and ready, Admiral. If these work as designed, we're going to give those aliens the surprise of their lives." Santos allowed herself a moment of pride at what humanity had accomplished. 3 days ago, most of the world believed their species was defenseless against galactic threats. Now, 500,000 warships were converging on the enemy fleet from every direction, using technology the aliens couldn't detect and weapons they'd never encountered. "All units, listen carefully." Admiral Thompson's voice carried across space to every ship in the human fleet. "In 30 minutes, we're going to show the galaxy what happens when you threaten Earth. These aliens think we're primitive, chaotic, and unworthy of freedom. They're about to learn that those traits are exactly what make us dangerous." On her tactical display, Santos watched as more human vessels dropped out of hyperspace in perfect coordination. Carriers deploying clouds of fighter craft, missile cruisers preparing massive barrage attacks, and specialized vessels armed with experimental weapons that pushed the boundaries of known physics. "Remember your training," Thompson continued. "Hit hard, hit fast, and keep moving. Don't give them time to adapt to our tactics. We have one chance to prove that humanity deserves its place among the stars, and we're not going to waste it." Santos looked around her bridge at the young officers who would soon be fighting for their species' survival. Lieutenant Park, barely 25, had graduated top of her class from the secret naval academy on Titan. Ensign Rodriguez, 23, was a veteran of the classified war games that had prepared them for this moment. Commander Walsh, her executive officer, had been training for alien contact scenarios since before most of his crew were born. They were ready. As ready as any human could be for a war against an enemy that controlled 10,000 star systems. "Captain," came a voice from the engineering station, "the quantum displacement drive is spooled up and ready. We can be inside their formation and firing before their sensors even register our presence. Santos nodded. The quantum drive was humanity's secret ace in the hole, a propulsion system that folded space-time to allow near-instantaneous movement across vast distances. The aliens would be expecting conventional faster-than-light travel, the kind that left detectable signatures and required time to charge up. They wouldn't be expecting human ships to simply appear among their formation like ghosts materializing from nothing. All stations, prepare for combat, Santos announced over the ship's intercom. In 25 minutes, we're going to hit the enemy with everything we've got. This is what we trained for. This is what humanity has been preparing for since we first looked up at the stars and wondered if we were alone. She paused, thinking of her daughter back on Earth, sleeping safely in her bed while her mother prepared to fight for her future. Today, we answer the galaxy's ultimatum. Today, we show them that humans don't kneel to anyone. Today, we fight for our freedom, our children, and our right to stand as equals among the stars. Around her, the bridge crew straightened in their stations. On the tactical display, hundreds of human vessels continued their silent approach, invisible to alien sensors but ready to emerge like a steel storm from the darkness of space. In the distance, the alien fleet waited in their arrogant formation, completely unaware that they were surrounded by 500,000 reasons why you should never underestimate the human capacity for violence when protecting what they love. The countdown timer on every human ship continued its relentless march toward zero, each second bringing them closer to a moment that would determine whether humanity would live free or die fighting. And in the cold vacuum of space, 500,000 ships filled with 2 million human souls prepared to deliver their answer to the galaxy's demands. That answer was going to be written in fire and fury across the darkness of space, in a language the aliens would understand perfectly. Commander Zethkar stood on the bridge of the Dominion flagship Eternal Judgment, reviewing reports from the surveillance drones monitoring Earth's pathetic orbital defenses. His crystalline form radiated satisfaction as he observed the primitive humans scrambling around their tiny space stations like insects in a disturbed nest. Status report, he commanded his tactical officer. A 6-armed creature from the Helix Nebula, whose species had surrendered to the Dominion without firing a single shot. The human fleet remains in defensive positions around their homeworld, Commander. 47 vessels total, exactly as our intelligence predicted. No new construction detected. No reinforcements arriving from their outer colonies. They appear to be accepting their fate. Zethkar's inner satisfaction grew stronger. The humans were behaving exactly as expected for a species facing inevitable extinction. Panic, followed by desperate negotiations, followed by resigned acceptance. He had overseen the pacification of dozens of worlds, and the pattern was always the same. What of their diplomatic communications? He asked. Multiple attempts to establish contact with our fleet, sir. Standard requests for negotiations, offers of tribute, promises of compliance with Dominion law. The usual begging. Ignore them, Zethkar commanded. Let them waste their final days pleading for mercy they will not receive. The Dominion Council has already decided their fate. Through the bridge's transparent aluminum viewports, he could see the assembled might of the Galactic Dominion. 15,000 warships representing the combined military power of 17 civilizations, each one capable of reducing a planet to ash within hours. The sight never failed to remind him why the Dominion had maintained peace for a millennium. Peace through overwhelming force. Order through absolute authority. It was the only way lesser species could coexist. Sir, came a voice from the sensor station. I'm detecting some unusual energy readings from the outer system. Very faint, possibly sensor ghosts or cosmic background radiation fluctuations. Zethkar barely glanced at the display. Investigate if you must, but don't waste time on phantom readings. The humans lack the technology to threaten this fleet. He returned his attention to the tactical display showing Earth's orbital defenses, pathetic chemical rockets, primitive nuclear weapons, and energy systems that would have been laughable even by Dominion standards from 500 years ago. The human military was a joke, their technology barely capable of reaching their own moon reliably. Commander, his communications officer reported, we're receiving another transmission from the human leadership. This one appears to be their final response to our ultimatum. Display it, Zethkar said, curious to see how this primitive species would choose to surrender. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the image of Admiral Thompson standing on what appeared to be a human military command bridge. Her expression was calm, almost serene, which surprised Zethkar. Most species leaders were either weeping or raging by this point in the process. To the Galactic Dominion Fleet, Thompson began, her voice steady and clear. We have received your ultimatum and considered our response carefully. After extensive deliberation, the unified leadership of humanity has reached a consensus. Zethkar leaned forward slightly, interested despite himself. The human's tone suggested confidence, which was unusual for a species facing annihilation. We reject your authority over humanity, Thompson continued. We reject your demand for surrender. We reject your claim that might makes right, and we especially reject your assumption that we are defenseless. A ripple of what might have been amusement passed through the Dominion bridge crew. Zethkar himself felt a moment of genuine humor at the human's defiance. Furthermore, Thompson said, we want you to know that humanity has been preparing for this moment far longer than you realize. Your arrival was not unexpected. Your threats are not new to us. Your technology is not as superior as you believe. Now Zethkar was frowning. The human's words suggested knowledge and preparation that should have been impossible for such a primitive species. In approximately 30 seconds, Thompson announced, you will discover why humanity has survived ice ages, volcanic winters, plague, war, famine, and every other catastrophe our galaxy has thrown at us for the past 200,000 years. You will learn what it means to threaten a species that has never known peace, never stopped fighting, and never learned to surrender. The transmission cut to black, leaving Zethkar staring at an empty screen. Around him, the bridge crew had fallen silent, their various forms of sensory organs focused on their instruments. Sir, came a voice from the tactical station, tinged with confusion. I'm reading massive energy buildups throughout the system. Multiple hyperspace signatures, thousands of them, all appearing simultaneously. Zethkar spun toward the main tactical display just as space around the Dominion fleet exploded into activity. Ships materialized from nowhere, appearing in perfect formation like they had been teleported directly into combat positions. Not the primitive human vessels they had observed, but sleek warships that looked nothing like the crude technology they had been monitoring. Impossible, Zethkar breathed, his crystalline form flickering with shock. Sensors confirm those readings. Confirmed, sir. I'm counting over 500,000 human vessels, all appearing simultaneously through some kind of spatial displacement technology. They're surrounding our entire fleet. The tactical display was a nightmare of red enemy contacts. Human ships filled every vector of approach, their formations precise and coordinated beyond what should have been possible for such a chaotic species. Massive dreadnoughts that rivaled Dominion battleships in size. Clouds of fighters and bombers. Specialized vessels bristling with weapon systems that sensors couldn't properly identify. How is this possible? Zethkar demanded. Our intelligence indicated a fleet of less than 50 vessels. His intelligence officer, a methane-breathing creature whose species prided itself on perfect surveillance, was frantically checking his instruments. Sir, these ships are using stealth technology beyond our ability to detect. They must have been hidden throughout the system for months, possibly years. On the view screen, space began to light up with weapons fire. But it wasn't the primitive energy beams or kinetic weapons the Dominion had expected from human technology. Instead, beams of coherent energy that seemed to bend space-time itself lanced out from human vessels, striking Dominion ships with devastating effect. Shields up. All vessels combat formation, Zethkar commanded. But even as the orders went out, he watched in horror as human weapons carved through Dominion defenses like they were made of paper. A massive human dreadnought, easily a kilometer long and bristling with weapon emplacements, materialized directly above the Eternal Judgment. Its hull bore markings in human script that Zethkar's translator rendered as UES, Prometheus, first of her name. Incoming. Transmission from the human flagship. His communications officer reported. Put it through, Zethkar said, his voice hollow with dawning realization. Admiral Thompson appeared on the screen again, but now she was standing on the bridge of a warship that looked like it had been designed by gods of war. Behind her, human officers worked at control stations that made Dominion technology look primitive by comparison. Galactic Dominion Fleet, Thompson said, her voice now carrying the authority of someone holding all the cards. You are surrounded, outgunned, and completely outmatched. Surrender immediately, and we will allow you to return to your home systems with the message that humanity is not as primitive as you assumed. Around the Eternal Judgment, space had become a storm of violence as 500,000 human warships engaged the Dominion fleet with weapons that defied explanation. Ships that had dominated the galaxy for 1,000 years were being torn apart by technology they couldn't understand, tactics they couldn't counter, and an enemy they had fatally underestimated. Zethkar stared at the tactical display showing his fleet being systematically destroyed, and finally understood the truth that would haunt the Dominion for generations to come. They hadn't been facing a primitive species. They had walked into a trap set by the most dangerous civilization the galaxy had ever produced. Captain Santos watched her tactical display with grim satisfaction as the UES Defiant tore through the alien formation like a shark through a school of fish. The quantum torpedoes her ship had fired 60 seconds ago were rewriting the laws of physics around enemy vessels, causing their hulls to age decades in seconds until they crumbled into radioactive dust. Direct hit on the enemy cruiser, Lieutenant Park reported from her station, her voice barely containing her excitement. Their shields couldn't even register our weapons before impact. The entire vessel is breaking apart at the molecular level. Around them, the battle raged with an intensity that made Santos grateful for years of simulation training. Human ships moved through space with coordinated precision, their formations flowing like liquid death around the larger, slower Dominion vessels. The aliens were reacting like any military force would when faced with technology they couldn't understand, tactics they'd never encountered, and an enemy that should have been inferior proving devastatingly superior. Wolfpack Alpha, report? Came Admiral Thompson's voice over the comm channel. 47 targets eliminated. 0 friendly casualties, Santos replied, maneuvering her ship past the burning wreckage of what had been a Dominion battleship. Their weapons can't lock onto our stealth signatures, and their armor is useless against quantum displacement warheads. Outstanding. Wolfpack Beta, Captain Chen's voice crackled through space filled with explosive energy discharges. Flanking maneuver successful, Admiral. 53 enemy vessels destroyed, and we've captured 2 intact ships for intelligence purposes. Their crews surrendered the moment they realized we could board their vessels at will. Santos smiled at that. The quantum displacement technology that allowed human ships to appear anywhere instantly also made boarding actions trivially easy. Human Marines could simply materialize inside enemy vessels, bypassing every defense system ever designed. Wolfpack Gamma, status report. Thompson continued. Captain Morrison's Scottish accent carried clearly over the comm despite the background noise of heavy weapons fire. Heavy Assault Squadron has eliminated the enemy command formation, Admiral. Their flagship is still operational, but completely surrounded. We're holding fire pending your orders. On her long-range sensors, Santos could see the broader scope of the battle. What had begun as an alien fleet of 15,000 warships was rapidly becoming scattered debris and floating wreckage. Human forces had achieved complete tactical surprise, technological superiority, and numerical advantage all at once. The results were predictably catastrophic for the Dominion. All ships, this is Admiral Thompson, came the broadcast to every human vessel. Cease fire and maintain positions. The enemy fleet is neutralized. Santos looked at her tactical display showing the aftermath of humanity's first interstellar war. In less than 2 hours, 500,000 human warships had effectively destroyed one of the most powerful military forces in galactic history. The few surviving alien vessels were either surrendering or fleeing toward the outer system, their crews undoubtedly traumatized by encountering an enemy that fought unlike anything in their experience. Captain, Commander Walsh said from the executive officer's station, we're receiving a transmission from the alien flagship. It appears to be a surrender offer. Put it through, Santos ordered. The main view screen flickered to life, showing the crystalline form of Commander Zethkar, standing amid the smoke and sparks of his damaged bridge. The alien's arrogance had been completely replaced by something Santos had never expected to see from a galactic conqueror. Fear. Human vessels, Zethkar said, his voice translator conveying desperation despite the mechanical tone. I am Commander Zethkar of the Galactic Dominion. I formally request a cessation of hostilities and the opening of surrender negotiations. Santos found herself face to face with the being who had threatened her species with extinction less than a week ago. The irony was not lost on her that the alien who had dismissed humanity as primitive was now begging for mercy from the very species he had planned to eliminate. "Commander Zethkar," Santos replied, her voice carrying the authority of someone who had just proven her species' right to exist among the stars. "I am Captain Maria Santos of the United Earth Strategic Defense Force. You are in no position to request anything. However, humanity is willing to discuss the terms of your surrender." The alien's form flickered with what might have been relief. We did not understand your true capabilities. Our intelligence was clearly flawed. The Dominion wishes to avoid further unnecessary bloodshed." "Unnecessary?" Santos felt her anger building. "You came to our system with 15,000 warships and threatened to freeze our planet to death. You called us primitives and pests. You planned genocide against 8 billion innocent people, and now you call further bloodshed unnecessary?" "Captain Santos," came Admiral Thompson's voice over a private channel, "I'm monitoring your communication. Remember our objectives." Santos took a deep breath, forcing herself to think strategically rather than emotionally. The battle was won, but the war for humanity's place in the galaxy was just beginning. "Commander Zethkar," she said finally, "here are our terms. Your surviving vessels will power down their weapons and submit to boarding by human forces. Your crews will be processed as prisoners of war under human military law. You will provide complete intelligence on Dominion military capabilities, political structure, and planned operations against other species." The alien's form shifted uncomfortably. I do not have authority to agree to such terms. The Dominion Council would never accept." "The Dominion Council is not in a position to negotiate," Santos interrupted. "We just destroyed 90% of their fleet with technology they can't match and tactics they can't counter. You will accept our terms, or we will continue this demonstration until there are no Dominion ships left to surrender." On her tactical display, Santos could see human vessels moving into formation around the surviving alien ships. The message was clear: surrender now, or join the wreckage floating throughout the outer system. "Furthermore," Santos continued, "you will carry a message back to your council. Humanity hereby claims its right to independence and self-determination. Any future attempts at invasion, coercion, or interference with human space will result in the complete destruction of Dominion civilization. We have proven we possess the capability, and you have given us justification." Zethkar was silent for a long moment, his crystalline form flickering with patterns that might have been the alien equivalent of shock. You would threaten the entire Dominion?" he finally asked. "We don't make threats," Santos replied. "We make promises. The Dominion ordered Earth to kneel. We have responded with 500,000 warships and a demonstration of why that was a mistake. Consider this a lesson in what happens when you underestimate a species that has been fighting for survival since before your civilization learned to make fire." The communication channel went silent as Zethkar apparently tried to process the reality of his situation. Around him, Santos could see alien crew members working to repair damage that would take months to fix properly, assuming they survived long enough to attempt repairs. "The Dominion will remember this," Zethkar said finally. "Good," Santos replied. "Make sure they remember all of it. Remember that humanity asked for nothing more than the right to exist in peace. Remember that your council chose to respond with threats of genocide. And remember that when we were forced to fight, we proved that human determination combined with human ingenuity is the most dangerous force in the galaxy." She paused, looking out at the wreckage of the most powerful fleet the galaxy had ever assembled. "Tell your council that Earth doesn't kneel to anyone. And if they ever forget that lesson, we'll be happy to provide a reminder." The transmission ended, leaving Santos alone with her crew and the aftermath of humanity's announcement to the galaxy. They had won their first interstellar war in under 3 hours. But she suspected this was only the beginning of a much larger conversation about humanity's place among the stars. 3 months after the Battle of Pluto, as human historians were already calling it, Dr. Elizabeth Chen stood in the diplomatic chambers aboard the UES Prometheus, now serving as humanity's mobile embassy to the galaxy. Through the massive viewports, she could see representatives from 47 different civilizations waiting in their various spacecraft, all requesting audience with the species that had shattered the Galactic Dominion in a single afternoon. The transformation had been remarkable to witness. Word of humanity's military capabilities had spread through the galaxy, faster than any human ship could travel. carried by the surviving Dominion vessels and the refugees from species that had decided to revolt against their former oppressors. Within weeks, the 1,000-year reign of the Dominion had collapsed into civil war and independence movements. Dr. Chen, Admiral Thompson said as she entered the chamber, still wearing the uniform that had become famous across 10,000 star systems. Are you ready for the next round of negotiations? As ready as anyone can be for rewriting galactic politics, Elizabeth replied, checking her tablet displaying the day's agenda. The Helix Collective wants to establish a formal alliance. The Crystalline Confederacy is offering exclusive trade agreements. The Free Worlds Coalition wants us to mediate their territorial dispute with the former Dominion core worlds. Thompson nodded grimly. And the Dominion itself? The Council has been overthrown. The new provisional government is requesting a formal peace treaty and offering reparations for their attempted genocide. Elizabeth paused, still amazed by how completely the balance of power had shifted. They're also asking for protection from the revolution movement spreading through their former territory. It was a situation that no human diplomatic protocol had ever prepared them for. In the space of 3 months, Earth had gone from an isolated backwater world to the most powerful military force in the galaxy. Every species that had spent centuries under Dominion rule was now looking to humanity for leadership, protection, or alliance. What's the status on our intelligence gathering? Thompson asked. Disturbing, Elizabeth admitted. The more we learn about the Dominion's history, the more we realize how many species they've eliminated over the past millennium. 43 civilizations completely destroyed, hundreds more forcibly pacified and stripped of their technology. The galaxy is much emptier than it should be. She pulled up a holographic display showing the current galactic map. Empty systems marked in red showed where entire civilizations had once thrived, before the Dominion decided they were too aggressive, too independent, or too dangerous to survive. The species that survived did so by abandoning everything that made them unique, Elizabeth continued. Their art, their culture, their scientific curiosity, their military capabilities. The Dominion created a galaxy of sheep, all afraid to show any trait that might be considered threatening. Thompson studied the map, with the expression of someone trying to process the scale of historical genocide. And now they're all looking to us to fill the power vacuum. Can you blame them? We proved that the Dominion wasn't invincible. For the first time in 1,000 years, there's hope that species can be free to develop naturally, to explore, to grow, to be more than just subjects of an oppressive empire. The communication panel chimed, indicating an incoming message from Earth. President Chen's face appeared on the screen, looking exhausted but determined. The past 3 months had aged her considerably as she dealt with the reality that humanity was now a galactic superpower whether they wanted to be or not. Admiral Thompson, Dr. Chen, the President began. The Security Council has reached a decision regarding our galactic policy moving forward. Elizabeth felt her stomach tighten. Earth's leadership had been debating humanity's role in the post-Dominion galaxy for months, with opinions ranging from complete isolation to aggressive expansion. We will not become the new Dominion, President Chen announced firmly. Humanity will not rule the galaxy through fear or force. However, we also cannot ignore our responsibility to the species that are looking to us for protection from the chaos that's spreading through former Dominion space. Thompson leaned forward. What are our orders, Madam President? We're establishing the Galactic Defense Alliance, came the reply. Any species that wants protection from aggression can join, provided they agree to basic principles of individual freedom, species self-determination, and peaceful coexistence. We'll provide military protection and technological assistance, but each member species retains complete autonomy over their internal affairs. Elizabeth nodded approvingly. It was a delicate balance between providing stability and avoiding the authoritarian mistakes of the Dominion. What about species that don't want to join? She asked. They're free to remain independent as long as they don't threaten other species. We're not interested in forced compliance. The galaxy has seen enough of that. The communication ended, leaving Thompson and Elizabeth alone with the weight of implementing humanity's new galactic policy. Through the viewports, they could see the waiting alien delegates, representatives of species that had lived under oppression for so long, they had almost forgotten what freedom looked like. Doctor, Thompson said quietly, do you think we're making the right choice? 3 months ago, we were an isolated species fighting for survival. Now we're trying to reshape galactic civilization. Elizabeth considered the question carefully. Admiral, the Dominion spent 1,000 years proving that might makes right, that peaceful species deserve to be conquered, and that diversity is dangerous. They created a galaxy where the strong prey on the weak and innovation is punished. We have the power to change that. She gestured toward the waiting alien ships. Every species out there has something unique to offer. Art, science, philosophy, technology we can't even imagine. The Dominion tried to suppress all of it in favor of order and control. We can give them the chance to flourish again. And if some of them turn out to be genuinely dangerous, Thompson asked, then we deal with them the way we dealt with the Dominion. But we don't punish entire civilizations for the crimes they might commit. We judge them by their actions, not their potential for aggression. Thompson smiled slightly. You know, the Dominion was right about one thing. Humans are chaotic and aggressive and unpredictable. They just didn't realize that sometimes that's exactly what the galaxy needs. Elizabeth activated the communication system, preparing to begin the next round of negotiations that would determine the future of galactic civilization. Attention all diplomatic vessels, this is Dr. Elizabeth Chen representing the United Earth Alliance. We're ready to begin formal discussions regarding the establishment of the Galactic Defense Alliance. As responses began coming in from dozens of different species, each one eager to discuss their place in a new galactic order, Elizabeth reflected on the strange path that had brought humanity to this moment. The Dominion had demanded that Earth kneel and surrender everything that made them human. Instead, humanity had stood up and shown the galaxy what freedom looked like. Now they had the chance to help others do the same. It wouldn't be easy. There would be conflicts, misunderstandings, and probably wars with species that preferred the old ways of conquest and domination. But for the first time in 1,000 years, the galaxy had hope for something better than rule by fear. And that hope flew under the banner of a small blue world that had refused to kneel to anyone. 5 years after the Battle of Pluto, Captain Maria Santos stood on the observation deck of the UES New Horizon, humanity's first diplomatic vessel designed specifically for long-range galactic missions. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she watched as construction crews from 17 different species worked together to complete Harmony Station, the new capital of the Galactic Defense Alliance. The sight never failed to amaze her. Where once there had been empty space on the edge of former Dominion territory, now stood a massive space station that served as both a symbol of cooperation and a practical center for galactic governance. Ships from hundreds of worlds docked at its ports daily, carrying diplomats, traders, scientists, and refugees seeking new homes in a galaxy that was finally learning to embrace diversity rather than suppress it. "Captain," came a voice behind her. She turned to see Ambassador Kethvar, the former Dominion commander who had become one of humanity's most trusted alien allies after the collapse of his government. His crystalline form had adapted over the years, developing patterns that human xenobiologists were still studying. "Ambassador," Santos replied, "I wasn't expecting you back from the Outer Rim negotiations so soon." "The discussions concluded more quickly than anticipated," Kethvar said, his translator conveying what might have been satisfaction. "The warrior clans have agreed to join the alliance, provided they can maintain their traditional combat sports as cultural practices rather than methods of territorial expansion." Santos nodded. It was typical of the compromises that made the alliance work. Species that had been warlike for millennia weren't going to abandon their nature overnight, but they could channel it into less destructive forms. The key was finding ways for everyone to be themselves without threatening others. "Any word from the exploratory fleets?" she asked. "Admiral Thompson's expedition has made contact with 3 previously unknown civilizations in the Andromeda approach," Kethvar reported. "All 3 have requested information about joining the alliance. Apparently, word of our principles has spread even beyond the galaxy's traditional communication networks. It was happening everywhere. As news of the alliance spread through space, species that had hidden themselves for centuries to avoid Dominion attention were emerging from isolation. Civilizations that had been thought extinct were revealing that they had simply gone into deep hiding, waiting for a safer time to reveal themselves. The galaxy was much larger and more diverse than anyone had realized during the Dominion's reign, Captain. "Santos," came a voice over the ship's communication system. "You have an incoming priority message from Earth." "Put it through to my ready room," Santos replied. She and Kethvar walked through corridors lined with artwork from dozens of worlds, past laboratories where human and alien scientists worked side by side on projects that were revolutionizing galactic technology. In her ready room, the main screen activated to show President Chen, now in her second term and widely regarded as the architect of modern galactic politics. Behind her, Santos could see the familiar skyline of Geneva, where the original Earth Council chambers had been expanded into a planetary coordination center. Captain Santos. Ambassador Kethvar, President Chen began. I have news that I wanted to share with our senior diplomatic staff personally. Santos felt a familiar tension. Good news rarely required presidential priority communications. We've received a message from the Deep Core Exploration Fleet, Chen continued. Admiral Park's expedition has discovered something extraordinary in the Galactic Center. Something that explains a great deal about the Dominion's historical behavior and our current situation. The screen shifted to show a star map focusing on the galaxy's central regions, areas that had been off-limits during Dominion rule and were only now being explored by Alliance vessels. It appears the Dominion was not the first galactic empire, Chen explained. Admiral Park has found evidence of at least 3 previous civilizations that attempted to unite the galaxy under single governments. All of them collapsed eventually, leaving behind ruins and automated systems that are still partially functional. Kethvar's form flickered with patterns Santos had learned to recognize as surprise. Madam President, Dominion historical records make no mention of predecessor civilizations. That's because the Dominion deliberately suppressed that information, Chen replied. They wanted their subjects to believe that galactic unity was only possible through their methods of control and suppression. The truth is that every previous attempt at galactic government failed because they tried to impose uniformity instead of managing diversity. Santos began to understand the implications. You're saying the Dominion was repeating historical mistakes? Exactly. And what's more interesting is that each previous civilization reached approximately the same level of technological and political development before their collapse. They all developed faster than light travel. They all attempted to create unified governments, and they all eventually destroyed themselves through internal conflicts. The president paused, her expression becoming more serious. The automated systems Admiral Park discovered include what appears to be a galactic monitoring network. Something has been watching civilizations rise and fall for millions of years, recording their mistakes and preserving the lessons. What kind of something? Santos asked, though she was beginning to suspect the answer would challenge everything they thought they knew about galactic history. We're not sure yet. The systems are incredibly advanced, but they don't appear to be controlled by any active intelligence. More like a vast library designed to help future civilizations avoid the mistakes of the past. Kethvar's form had shifted to patterns Santos associated with deep thought. If such systems exist, why did they not prevent the Dominion's rise? Because the systems don't interfere, Chen explained. They only provide information to civilizations that are ready to learn from it. Apparently, the Alliance has reached a level of political and technological maturity that previous galactic governments never achieved. Santos felt a chill of possibility. You're saying we have access to millions of years of accumulated knowledge about galactic civilization? That's exactly what I'm saying. The automated systems have already begun transmitting data to our exploration teams. Scientific principles, political theories, technological designs, historical records of species that vanished long before the Dominion was even conceived. The implications were staggering. Humanity and the Alliance weren't just stumbling toward galactic unity through trial and error. They had access to a vast repository of knowledge accumulated by countless civilizations that had tried and failed to create lasting galactic peace. What are our orders, Madam President? Santos asked. Continue the work we're doing here, Chen replied. The Alliance is functioning better than any previous galactic government in recorded history. We're managing to balance unity with diversity, strength with freedom, progress with stability. The automated systems seem to view our approach as the most promising attempt at galactic civilization they've observed. She paused, her expression becoming almost philosophical. 5 years ago, the Dominion ordered us to kneel because they believed we were too chaotic and aggressive to deserve freedom. It turns out that our chaos and aggression, properly directed, are exactly what the galaxy needed to break the cycle of failed empires and oppressive governments. Santos looked out through her ready room's viewport at Harmony Station, where beings from hundreds of worlds worked together on projects that would have been impossible under Dominion rule. Art galleries displaying creativity that had been suppressed for centuries. Research laboratories pushing the boundaries of what was scientifically possible. Diplomatic chambers where conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than conquest. There's one more thing, President Chen added. The automated systems have provided us with coordinates for other galaxy clusters, where similar cycles of rise and fall are occurring. The Alliance may have an opportunity to share what we've learned with civilizations in Andromeda, the Magellanic Clouds, and beyond. The idea was overwhelming. Humanity, which had been an isolated species just 5 years ago, was now part of a galactic alliance that might eventually become an intergalactic network of free civilizations. Captain Santos, Chen concluded, prepare the New Horizon for extended deep space operations. We're going to need our best diplomatic teams for what comes next. The transmission ended, leaving Santos and Kethvar alone with the magnitude of what they had just learned. The galaxy was older, larger, and more complex than anyone had imagined. The Alliance was part of something much greater than a simple political organization. They were part of the galaxy's attempt to finally get civilization right. Ambassador, Santos said finally, I think our work is just beginning. Kethvar's form displayed patterns of what Santos had learned to recognize as determination mixed with hope. Captain, my people spent 1,000 years believing that peace required the suppression of individual expression. We were wrong. The humans taught us that strength comes from diversity,